Marcus was 39 years old, earned a steady $61,000 a year as an HVAC technician, and believed, with the quiet certainty of a man who trusts the foundation of his own house, that his life was good. He was a proud black man, his short, neat locks a testament to his discipline, his deep brown skin weathered by long days of honest work under the Carolina sun. He loved his wife, Brianna. He loved their small brick bungalow in Eastland, the one his mother, his sweet mama, had left him. He had placed Brianna's name on the deed 6 months after their wedding, a gesture he thought symbolized that everything he had was hers too. He had no idea how wrong he was. He had no idea that his trust was a resource being systematically drained, a currency being spent against him. The devastating truth arrived not like a thunderclap, but like a whisper in the suffocating quiet of his own bedroom. It was 2:14 a.m. on a Tuesday. Rain tapped against the window pane, a gentle, mournful rhythm. Marcus had been woken by a cramp in his leg, a dull ache that had him shifting in the sheets. He lay perfectly still, breathing slowly, waiting for the muscle to release. Brianna, beside him, stirred. He thought she was dreaming. He felt the bed dip as she rolled toward him, her breath warm near his ear. He was about to reach for her, to pull her close, when the words slipped out. A low, conspiratorial murmur meant for the phone she was holding, not for him. "Just 6 more months, Julian," she whispered, her voice a venomous hiss that sliced through the darkness. "The bathroom will be done. He'll have paid off the last of my student loans. Then he's nothing. The post-nup is ironclad. Abandonment, everything is mine." A profound coldness, colder than any walk-in freezer he'd ever serviced, flooded Marcus's body. He didn't flinch. He didn't stop breathing. He became a statue of a sleeping man, every muscle locked in a terrifying stillness. He was an HVAC technician. He understood pressure. He knew that some systems, when shocked, explode. Others, when carefully managed, can have their flow reversed, their poison redirected back to the source. In that single, horrifying moment, as the rain fell outside and his wife plotted his complete destruction just inches away, Marcus chose to be the system manager. He chose patience. He chose silence. And he chose a cold, clinical war that Brianna would never see coming. The man she thought was sleeping was more awake than he had ever been in his life. He now knew his marriage wasn't a partnership. It was a 6-month contract on his own ruin. Have you ever had a moment where everything you believed in was shattered by a single sentence? It's a feeling of falling, even when you're lying perfectly still. Marcus was falling, and the only thing he could think to do was to document the wreckage on the way down. The facade of their life had been built with his sweat and his savings. Looking back, Marcus could see every dollar-tagged brick he had laid in the foundation of his own betrayal. Their life wasn't a partnership, it was a project, and he was the sole investor. Brianna had come into the marriage with a radiant smile, ambition that seemed to sparkle, and $48,000 in debt. There was the $22,000 from her master's degree in communications, a $16,000 car loan for a Honda Civic she'd since traded in, and about $10,000 in credit card debt spread across 3 high-interest accounts. "We're a team, baby," she had said one night, her head on his chest in the living room of his inherited bungalow. She was tracing patterns on his work shirt. "Your house, my drive. We can't have my old baggage holding us back." So he'd agreed. Over the next 2 years, he took on extra weekend jobs, installing new central air units in stuffy attics for a flat fee of $1,500 a job. He poured every extra dollar into her debt. He remembered the day he made the final payment on her Sallie Mae loan, $4,312. He'd brought home a cheap, $15 bottle of sparkling wine to celebrate. Brianna had looked at the bottle on their $800 crate and barrel dining table, a table he had assembled himself, and given a tight little smile. "That's sweet, Marcus, but you know I prefer Veuve." A bottle of Veuve Clicquot cost $60. It was a small comment, a tiny pinprick, but it was part of a pattern he was only now beginning to recognize. The house itself was the biggest project. It was a solid, 1,400 square foot brick home his mama had kept immaculate. But it was dated. Brianna wanted it to look like something from a magazine, something worthy of her friends who lived in new builds in Ballantyne. She wanted a home that looked like it belonged to a $95,000 a year PR executive, not a $61,000 a year HVAC tech. The kitchen was first. "It's the heart of the home," she'd declared, flipping through a $70 coffee table book on modern design. The original heart, with its sturdy oak cabinets and Formica countertops, apparently wasn't good enough. The renovation cost $28,000. Marcus did the demolition, the plumbing, and the electrical himself to save money, his body aching after his regular 10-hour shifts. He spent weekends installing the $7,000 worth of quartz countertops and the $4,500 suite of stainless steel appliances. Brianna's contribution was picking the paint color, a shade called greige, that cost $80 a gallon. While he worked, she would often be on the phone with her brother Julian. He was a financial advisor of some sort, slick and always dressed in suits that cost more than Marcus's entire monthly mortgage payment, which Marcus paid on his own every month, $1,150. "No, the subway tile is classic," she'd say into her $1,200 iPhone. "It adds value. Marcus is handling it. He's good with his hands." The compliment always felt double-edged, as if she were praising a particularly useful appliance. Then came the post-nup. It was her idea, brought up about a year into the marriage, just after he'd finished paying off her debts. She sat him down at that same crate and barrel table, a stack of papers from her lawyer's office fanned out neatly. Her lawyer, a man in a gleaming uptown office, billed at $650 an hour. "It's for both of us," she'd explained, her voice smooth and reasonable. Her nails, a perfect $80 manicure, tapped on a specific clause. "It just protects our assets. What's yours is yours, what's mine is mine. And," she added, giving him her most dazzling smile, "what we build together, we build together. But it has this standard clause, see? If one of us abandons the other, well, it shows a lack of commitment. So the other person is protected." He remembered reading the word abandonment. It seemed like such a strange, archaic term. Why would he ever abandon her? This was his home, his life. He'd just spent $28,000 on a kitchen for them. He saw another clause, one about mutual fidelity, and felt a flush of warmth. Of course, they were committed to each other. That was the whole point. He didn't hire his own lawyer. That would have felt like an act of mistrust, an insult. A consultation alone would have been $400, money he was saving for the bathroom remodel she wanted next. So he signed the document, a thick sheaf of paper that cost her $3,000 in legal fees, a bill he later found and paid from their joint account, which he was the only one funding. He signed away his future, believing he was securing it. The total of his contributions, the debt payoff, the kitchen, the landscaping, the new roof 2 years prior, $12,000, the property taxes, $3,200 a year, and the constant funding of her lifestyle of $450 salon visits and weekend trips with friends, was easily approaching $147,000. All of it poured into a foundation of lies. And he had the receipts to prove it. The outrage didn't accumulate all at once. It was a slow poison, administered in small, polite doses over years. Each dose was a casual remark, a dismissive gesture, a public humiliation so subtle that to react would have made him seem overly sensitive. He had swallowed it all, telling himself it was just Brianna being Brianna. Now, lying in the dark, the memories replayed with brutal clarity, each one a piece of evidence in the case being built in his mind. There was the dinner party, about 8 months ago. Brianna had insisted on hosting some of her colleagues from the prestigious PR firm in Myers Park where she worked. These were people who wore $8,700 Armani suits and talked about their portfolios. Marcus had spent the day cleaning the house, mowing the lawn, and preparing a smoked brisket, a 16-hour process he'd perfected. He was proud of the result, the meat tender and flavorful. He felt like a good host, a good husband. He was standing by the new $3,000 wine fridge she'd insisted they buy, refilling a glass for one of her friends, a woman wearing a delicate gold necklace that probably cost $1,500. The woman, named Chloe, turned to him. "Brianna tells us you're in construction or something?" she asked, her tone not unkind, but clearly placing him in a category far below her own. Before Marcus could answer, "I'm an HVAC technician." Brianna glided over, placing a perfectly manicured hand on his arm. She laughed, a light, tinkling sound that suddenly sounded like breaking glass. "Oh, Chloe, don't be silly. Marcus is a magician. He can take a pile of metal and wires and make cold air appear. It's amazing what you can do without a college degree these days." She smiled at him, a bright, empty smile that didn't reach her eyes. "He makes an honest living. It's very noble." The room went quiet for a beat. The word noble hung in the air, a euphemism for quaint or simple. He saw the pitying looks from her friends. He was the blue-collar husband, the folksy project. He felt his face grow hot. He, a proud black man who ran his own jobs, who managed complex diagnostic and repair sequences, who owned the very house they were standing in, was being described like a hard-working farm animal. He just nodded, mumbled something about checking the brisket, and retreated to the kitchen he had built with his own hands. He could hear her laughter following him. The brisket, which had cost him $90 and a full day's effort, suddenly tasted like ash in his mouth. Then there was the fight about the vacation. It was a recurring theme. Brianna's Instagram feed was a curated gallery of her friends' trips to Bali, to Santorini, to Aspen. She felt she was falling behind. One evening, she came to him with a brochure for a resort in Turks and Caicos. A 7-day trip would cost them at minimum $8,000. "We deserve this, Marcus," she'd said, spreading the glossy pages on their bed. "Look at this water. I need a break." Marcus looked at the numbers in his head. He had just paid a $2,400 bill for an emergency repair on his 2015 Ford F-150, the truck that was the lifeblood of his business. He was trying to save, to build up a cushion. Maybe one day he could start his own small company. "Bree, it's beautiful, but we can't afford an $8,000 trip right now," he said gently. "Maybe we could do a weekend in the mountains. Asheville is beautiful this time of year. We could find a nice cabin for a few $100s. Her face hardened. The soft, aspirational glow was replaced by a sharp, ugly contempt. "Asheville? Marcus, my friends are flying first class to Europe and you're offering me a cabin in the woods? Do you have any idea how that sounds?" She stood up, pacing the room. "This is the problem. Your ambition is just so small. You're content with this $61,000 a year life with your dirty truck and your work boots. I want more. I thought you wanted more for me. It's not dirty work, Brianna. It's my work. It's how I paid for this floor you're standing on, for that degree hanging on your wall." "Oh, please," she scoffed, waving a dismissive hand. "Don't throw that in my face. I'm the one with the real career, the one with the future. You're You're a technician. There's a ceiling on that, a very low one. The cruelty was so casual, so profound. She wasn't just insulting his job. She was insulting his entire being, his capacity as a man. He didn't shout. He just felt something inside him close off. A heavy door swinging shut on a room that had once been filled with warmth. Her brother Julian was the worst of it. He was a constant presence, either on the phone or in person, a smug co-conspirator in Brianna's campaign of quiet condescension. He'd visit their home and treat it like a hotel, leaving his $300 leather shoes in the hallway for Marcus to nearly trip over. During one visit, Marcus was in the backyard, working on building a small deck. It was a project he was excited about, envisioning summer evenings out there. He'd spent $1,200 at Lowe's on lumber and supplies. Julian came out, holding a glass of iced tea Brianna had made him. He watched Marcus for a moment, a smirk playing on his lips. "Putting in some sweat equity, huh, Mark?" he said. It wasn't a question. It was a label. Good man. Every asset needs maintenance. He took a slow sip of his tea. "Bree tells me you're thinking about the master bathroom next. That's a smart move. A renovated master bath in a neighborhood like this can add, 20 grand in value? You're building her a nice little nest egg." Her nest egg. The words were so deliberate. Julian looked at Marcus, his eyes cold and appraising. He wasn't seeing his brother-in-law. He was seeing an unpaid contractor. Marcus just kept hammering. The rhythmic thud of metal on metal, a counterpoint to the rage building in his chest. He wanted to tell Julian that it was his house, that his name was the first one on the deed his mama had left him, but he knew it would be pointless. In their eyes, he was just a temporary feature, a tool to be used until the project was complete. He was the ladder they were climbing, and they had every intention of kicking it away once they reached the top. Now, lying in the dark, he finally understood. The project wasn't just renovating the house. The project was him, and his demolition was already scheduled. 2:17 a.m. The whisper was gone, but the words were branded into the silence of the room. Just 6 more months, then he's nothing. Everything is mine. Marcus's heart was a cold, heavy stone in his chest. His first instinct was primal, to sit up, to turn on the light, to confront her, to scream the words back in her face. But the technician in him took over. The man who diagnoses complex systems before ever touching a wrench knew that a premature reaction would destroy his only chance. He needed data. He needed proof. He lay there for what felt like an eternity, his breathing deep and even, a perfect imitation of sleep. He listened to the rhythm of Brianna's own breath change as she drifted from the drowsy state of late-night texting into a deep, oblivious slumber. He counted to 500. Twice. The rain had softened to a light drizzle. The house was utterly still. At 2:48 a.m., he made his move. Slowly, with an economy of motion he used when working around live wires, he slipped out of bed. The floorboards didn't creak. He was barefoot, moving like a ghost in his own home. Brianna's phone was on her nightstand, a sleek, rose gold iPhone 14 Pro, a $1,200 device he'd paid for as a birthday gift. It was plugged into its charger. Her purse, a $950 Michael Kors satchel, was on the chair in the corner. He padded over to the nightstand. His hand was trembling, not with fear, but with a cold, electrifying rage. He carefully unplugged the phone. His mind raced. The passcode. He'd seen her type it in 100 times, her thumb moving in a quick, familiar pattern. He had always looked away, respecting her privacy. What a fool he had been. He tried the most obvious combination. Her birthday, 0812. The phone screen vibrated. Try again in 1 minute. His blood ran cold. One more wrong guess, and it would lock for longer. He stood in the faint moonlight, filtering through the blinds, his mind a blank panic. What else? He closed his eyes, picturing her thumb moving across the screen. It wasn't a date, it was a shape, an L shape. He waited for the minute to pass, the seconds ticking by like hammer blows. He took a breath and traced the pattern. 147896. The phone unlocked. He felt a grim, sickening wave of triumph. He immediately dimmed the screen to its lowest setting and walked into the adjoining bathroom, closing the door until only a sliver of light remained. He sat on the edge of the tub, the cold porcelain a shock to his system. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the device. He went straight to her text messages. The thread with Jules was right at the top. He tapped it. His eyes scanned the recent exchange, the one that must have happened just before she whispered his doom into the darkness. Jules. So is he doing the bathroom? The good tile? Brianna. Of course. The Carrara marble look. He grumbled about the cost. $1,200 for the tile alone. But he's doing it. He's so predictable. Jules. Good. Let him finish. Keep him happy. 6 more months is all we need. After you hit the 3-year mark, post-nup, the abandonment clause is bulletproof. The lawyer confirmed. Brianna. I know. 6 more months. He'll be gone by Christmas, and the house will be fully mine. He'll be left with his truck and his tools. Jules. He'll be nothing. Marcus had to put the phone down on his knee. He felt the air leave his lungs. He'll be nothing. The words echoed her whisper. It wasn't a dream. It was a conspiracy. He scrolled up, his thumb moving numbly. There were months of this. Meticulous planning. They had discussed when she would start the fight that would lead to him storming out. They had a timeline. They had a budget, funded by him. Then he saw it. The voice notes. There was a short one from Julian, sent earlier that evening. Marcus's finger hovered over the play button. He lifted the phone to his ear, cupping it, keeping the volume so low only he could hear. Julian's voice was slick with arrogance. Hey, B, just got off the phone with my guy. He says as long as you can prove he left you, you have to document it, text messages saying I can't take this anymore, maybe leave a note he can find. You're golden. The asset transfer is clean. He gets his tools, you get the nearly paid off $500,000 house. A pretty good trade for putting up with Mr. Blue Collar for a few years, right? Talk soon. Marcus felt a profound and terrifying calm settle over him. This was it. This was the irrefutable proof. He took out his own phone, a 3-year-old Samsung Galaxy that cost him $400. He opened the video recorder, aimed it at Brianna's screen, and slowly, methodically, scrolled through every single text message, capturing them all on video. Then, he played the voice note again, recording the audio. He filmed the contact information. He filmed everything. He saved the video, then immediately uploaded it to his personal cloud storage, a secure server he used for his business invoices. Then, he backed it up to a separate flash drive. By 3:17 a.m., the evidence was secured in 3 different places. He deleted the video from his phone's local storage. No traces. He crept back into the bedroom, plugged the iPhone back into its charger, and placed it exactly where it had been. He slid back into bed. Brianna murmured in her sleep and rolled away from him. He lay on his back, staring at the ceiling, the shadows of the fan blades turning like the gears in his mind. The shock was gone. The hurt was still there, a deep, cavernous wound. But on top of it, something new was forming. A layer of ice, a cold, hard, strategic resolve. She thought he was nothing. She had made a critical mistake. She had forgotten that the man who can diagnose a faulty condenser under pressure can also diagnose a liar. And he knew exactly which wire to cut to shut the whole rotten system down. The next morning was the first scene in a play only he was aware of. The script was Happy Husband, and he had to give the performance of a lifetime. At 6:15 a.m., his alarm went off, the same grating beep as every other morning. He shut it off before the second chime. Beside him, Brianna groaned and pulled a pillow over her head. "Morning, baby," he said, his voice practiced and even. He leaned over and kissed her on the forehead, a gesture that felt like pressing his lips to cold marble. She smelled of her expensive $180 Chanel Chance perfume. 5 more minutes," she mumbled into the pillow. "I'll make coffee," he said. He walked into the kitchen he had built for her, his bare feet on the cool, gray porcelain tile he had laid. He opened the bag of artisanal coffee beans she liked, a $22 bag that lasted them 1 week. He ground the beans, the whirring of the $150 Breville grinder filling the too-quiet house. Every normal domestic act was now freighted with a terrible new meaning. The coffee maker wasn't for them. It was for her. The kitchen wasn't theirs. It was the main asset in her portfolio. She emerged 20 minutes later, wrapped in a $250 silk robe he'd bought her for their anniversary. Her hair was tied up in a messy bun, her deep brown skin glowing. She looked beautiful, and the thought made him sick. "You're a lifesaver," she said, taking the mug he offered. She smiled at him, a bright, practiced smile. It was the same smile he'd seen in 100 photos, but now he could see the calculation behind it. It was the smile of a predator. "Big day today." "Just a couple of maintenance calls and then that install over in Dilworth," he replied, leaning against the counter, sipping his own coffee from a chipped ceramic mug his mama had given him. It was probably worth 50 cents. It was the most valuable thing in the room. "Oh, that's right," she said, her eyes lighting up with fake interest. "Don't forget we have dinner with the Hendersons tonight, so don't be too late. And try not to get too, you know?" She gestured vaguely at his work clothes, a simple pair of tan Carhartt pants and a navy blue polo shirt. Dirty. She didn't have to say the word. "I'll be sure to shower," he said, his tone flat. He had to force himself not to let the ice in his veins creep into his voice. The ultimate test of his resolve came that weekend. It was time to work on the master bathroom, the next phase of his own undoing. According to her text with Julian, this was a key part of the plan. Let him finish the expensive remodel, then detonate the marriage. He had already purchased the materials, $1,200 for the faux Carrara marble tile she wanted, $900 for a new double vanity from Pottery Barn, $600 for a frameless glass shower door, and another $500 in plumbing fixtures and cement board. A total of $3,200 he had paid for from his business account. He spent all day Saturday in a cloud of dust and debris, tearing out the old tub and tile. The physical labor was a relief. He could channel his rage into the swing of a sledgehammer, into the pry of a crowbar. Brianna stayed out of the way, claiming the dust bothered her allergies. She went shopping, a trip that he later saw cost $478 at Nordstrom on his credit card statement. She came to the doorway in the late afternoon, holding a bottle of water. "How's it going, my hard-working man?" she asked, her voice dripping with manufactured sweetness. He was on his knees, scraping old adhesive off the subfloor. He looked up at her, his face streaked with sweat and grime. He saw her eyes flicker for a fraction of a second to the mess, a tiny twitch of disgust, before she pasted the supportive wife smile back on. "It's coming along," he said. "It's a lot of work." "I know, baby, but it's going to be so worth it. Our own little spa. It's a great investment in the house." "In your house," he thought. He just nodded. "Yeah, an investment." The final piece of his private investigation fell into place 2 weeks later. He had been playing the part of the dutiful husband perfectly. He made dinner. He listened to her complain about her incompetent junior associate. He rubbed her feet while they watched shows on a $2,000 television he'd mounted on the wall. All the while, he was a silent observer, a spy in his own life. He noticed she had started leaving her phone face down. She had started taking calls in the other room. Small changes that confirmed everything. He was doing laundry one Tuesday night when he found it. A folded receipt in the pocket of the jeans she'd worn the previous Friday. It was from the Ballantine Hotel, a luxury establishment with rooms that started at $450 a night. The charge was for one night plus a $128 room service charge for dinner for two and a bottle of champagne. The name on the reservation was not hers. It was a man's name, David Keller. He remembered the name. He was a senior partner at her firm, a married man. Marcus stood in his laundry room, the hum of the dryer filling the silence. The receipt was a flimsy piece of paper, but it was as solid as a block of granite. This was the final nail. The postnup she was banking on, the one she thought was her golden ticket, had a mutual fidelity clause. He remembered the lawyer's words from the document she'd had him sign. Should either party engage in infidelity, any and all claims to shared assets under this agreement are subject to forfeiture. She had been so focused on her elaborate abandonment scheme, so confident in his ignorance, that she had gotten sloppy. She had violated the very contract she was planning to use as a weapon. He didn't confront her. He didn't wave the receipt in her face. He took out his Samsung phone, placed the receipt on top of the dryer, and took a clear, high-resolution photograph. He uploaded it to the same secure cloud server where the video of her texts was stored. Then he folded the receipt carefully and put it back in her jeans pocket. He put the jeans in the wash. He would let her believe she had destroyed the evidence herself. The machine whirred to life, tumbling his wife's lies in a cycle of soap and water. But Marcus knew some stains never wash out. The following Monday at 11:30 a.m., Marcus was not on a job site. He was sitting in a leather wingback chair that probably cost $4,000 in an office on the 45th floor of a glass tower uptown. The view of Charlotte was immense, the city sprawling below. He felt a strange sense of detachment, as if he were looking at a map of a place he no longer lived. Across from him, a woman with sharp, intelligent eyes and silver-threaded hair styled in elegant braids studied the papers on her mahogany desk. This was Evelyn Reed, Esquire, a name he'd gotten from a quiet referral described as the shark you want on your side. Her hourly rate was $850, a figure that made his stomach clench. He had liquidated $15,000 from his personal savings account, nearly everything he had, to pay her retainer. It was the best money he had ever spent. "Mr. Hayes?" she said, her voice calm and measured. She hadn't looked up for 10 minutes, her focus entirely on the photocopied pages of the post-nuptial agreement he had provided. "You say your wife's brother is a financial advisor?" "That's what he calls himself," Marcus replied, his hands resting on his knees. He was wearing his Sunday best, a simple $250 suit he'd bought for his mother's funeral. "I think he mostly advises his sister on how to commit fraud." Evelyn allowed a small, grim smile. She tapped a paragraph on the page with a gold pen. She was very thorough. The abandonment clause is aggressive. It's written to trigger a complete forfeiture of your claim to the primary residence if you are absent for more than 14 consecutive days without written consent. "That was the plan," Marcus said, "for her to provoke a fight, for me to leave to cool off, and then I'm locked out and served with papers." "A classic, if crude, strategy," Evelyn said. She turned a page. However, she made two catastrophic amateur-level mistakes. She looked up at him, her gaze direct. First, The fidelity clause you mentioned. It's mutual and it is absolute. You have definitive proof of her infidelity? Marcus nodded. He pushed a small 64-gigabyte flash drive across the polished surface of the desk. It had cost him $12.99 at Staples. On there is a high-resolution photo of a hotel receipt from the Ballantine Hotel in another man's name for a night she told me she was at a work conference. The timestamp on the receipt confirms it was a Friday night. Evelyn slid the flash drive to the side without looking at it yet. Good. That alone is enough to gut her primary claim. But it gets better. She tapped another section of the postnup. Section 11B. The Fraud and Misrepresentation Clause. It states that if either party is found to have entered into or executed the terms of this agreement with malicious intent to defraud the other, the entire agreement is rendered null and void. Not just one part of it, all of it. Marcus felt a surge of adrenaline. What does that mean exactly? It means, Evelyn said, leaning forward, that her plan to fake your abandonment isn't just a violation of the spirit of the agreement. It's a premeditated act of fraud. The text messages you recorded, they are not just proof of a plan. They are proof of a conspiracy to fraudulently seize an asset, your house, using the postnup as a tool, and her brother is an accessory. She finally picked up the flash drive. Tell me exactly what is on this drive, Mr. Hayes. For the next 30 minutes, Marcus laid it all out. He spoke in a low, steady voice, the voice he used to explain a complex diagnosis to a client. He described the video he had taken of her phone, showing the texts between her and Julian. He recounted the exact words from Julian's voice memo. A pretty good trade for putting up with Mr. Blue Collar for a few years. He detailed the financial documents he had also included on the drive, bank statements, credit card bills, and receipts from Lowe's and Home Depot, meticulously organized into a spreadsheet. I've calculated my direct financial contributions to her personal debt and the home improvements she demanded, Marcus said, his voice hard as steel. It comes to $147,854.12, not including my labor. Evelyn Reed was silent for a long moment after he finished. She stared at the small flash drive in her hand as if it were a bomb. Mr. Hayes, she said, her voice holding a new note of respect, your wife and her brother are not just arrogant. They are fools. They put everything in writing. She stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the city. Here is what is going to happen. We are not going to file for a simple divorce based on infidelity. That would let her walk away bruised but intact. We are going to counter-petition with a civil claim of fraud. We will file an emergency motion to have the post-nuptial agreement declared void. We will place a lien against her assets for the recovery of your financial contributions. We will name her brother, Julian, as a co-conspirator in the fraud claim. She turned back to him. We will not be asking for the house. The house is already yours. It was your inheritance. Her name on the deed was contingent on the good faith of the marriage, a faith she has demonstrably shattered. The court will see that. We will have her name expunged from the title. Marcus felt a weight lift from him, a pressure that had been building for weeks. When? Evelyn smiled, and this time it was a true shark's smile. It was terrifying and beautiful. The timing must be precise. You will continue to play your part. You will finish the bathroom. You will let her believe she is in complete control. Then, you will tell her you are going away for the weekend. A fishing trip. Something she won't question. The moment you are clear of the house, you will call me. My process server will be waiting. She sat back down, her demeanor all business again. He will serve her at her place of work, in the middle of the day. He will serve her brother at his office, The filings will be public. The petition will include transcripts of the text messages. It will be a controlled demolition, Mr. Hayes, and you will be standing safely outside the blast radius. Marcus thought of the half-finished bathroom at home, the expensive tile waiting to be laid. He had to go back there and keep working. He had to keep smiling at the woman who had plotted his ruin. But now, it felt different. He wasn't a victim anymore. He was a strategist. And the final phase of his plan was about to begin. The strike was scheduled for a Friday. For 2 more weeks, Marcus lived inside the lie. It was the hardest thing he had ever done. He spent his evenings and the following weekend finishing the master bathroom. He laid the $1, $200 worth of faux Carrara tile with painstaking precision. He set the $900 double vanity, making sure it was perfectly level. He installed the sleek, modern faucets, which had cost $350. Each task was an act of supreme self-control. He was building the centerpiece of her victory, the final jewel in the crown of the house she intended to steal. Brianna was ecstatic. She would come in and run her hand over the cool tile, a proprietary gleam in her eye. "Oh, Marcus, it's perfect," she'd sigh. "It looks like something out of a 5-star hotel. You are so talented." She was praising the tool, not the man. On the Thursday night before the strike, he put the last touches on the room. He hung the mirrors, cleaned every surface, and installed the final light fixture. The bathroom was finished. It was beautiful, sterile, and completely devoid of any warmth. It was a perfect monument to their marriage. That night in bed, she snuggled up to him. "Thank you for the bathroom, baby," she whispered. "I know it was a lot. I really appreciate you." He could feel the triumphant smirk in her voice. The project was complete. The contractor's services were no longer needed. "You're welcome," he said, staring into the darkness. Friday morning arrived, cool and clear. Marcus got up at his usual time. He packed a small duffel bag with a change of clothes, his fishing gear conspicuous in the back of his F-150. It was all part of the performance. "You're all set for your trip?" Brianna asked, sipping her coffee. She was already dressed for work in a sharp, cream-colored blazer that cost at least $600. She looked powerful and confident. She looked like a woman who was 1 weekend away from getting everything she wanted. "Yep, heading out to Lake Norman. Should be back Sunday evening," he said, keeping his voice casual. He walked over to her and gave her a kiss. It was like kissing a photograph. "Have a good day at work," he said. "You too, sweetie." "Catch a big one," she chirped, a brilliant false smile plastered on her face. He walked out the door and didn't look back. He got in his truck, the engine turning over with a familiar rumble. He drove not towards the lake, but to a small park a few miles away. At exactly 9 a.m., he pulled his Samsung phone from his pocket and made the call. "Evelyn," he said, "it's Marcus Hayes. I'm clear of the house." "Understood," her voice came back, crisp and immediate. "The servers are moving now. I will contact you when it's done. Turn off your phone, Marcus. Do not answer any calls or texts from her or her family, not a single one. Go find some peace for a few hours. We have this." He hung up, turned his phone off, and tossed it onto the passenger seat. He leaned his head back and closed his eyes. The sun was warm on his face. For the first time in months, he felt like he could breathe. At 10:15 a.m., Brianna was in the middle of a strategy meeting in a glass-walled conference room on the 32nd floor of the Myers Park Corporate Center. She was presenting a new campaign proposal to a major client, a moment she lived for. She was articulate, charming, and in complete command. In the middle of her presentation, the door opened. A large, stone-faced man in a nondescript suit stepped inside. He was holding a thick manila envelope. "Brianna Hayes?" he asked, his voice a low rumble that cut through the corporate jargon. Brianna's smile faltered. Yes? I'm in a meeting. This is for you, the man said, placing the envelope firmly on the table in front of her, right on top of her presentation slides. Her boss and the clients stared. What is this? She asked, her voice tight with annoyance. You've been served, the man said. He turned and walked out, closing the door behind him. The room was silent. Humiliation washed over Brianna's face. She stared at the envelope as if it were a snake. Her boss cleared his throat. Brianna, perhaps we should take a 5-minute break. Her hands trembling, she tore open the envelope. She pulled out the sheaf of papers. The first page was a petition to the court. Her eyes scanned the words: fraud, conspiracy, infidelity, misrepresentation. Then she saw the exhibits. Exhibit A, a full transcript of her text messages with Julian. Her own words laid out in cold, black ink. 6 more months. Then he's nothing. He's so predictable. Her blood turned to ice. Her face went completely white. The carefully constructed world of her career, her image, her future, shattered in that silent, glass-walled room. At the exact same moment, 20 miles away in a Ballantine office park, her brother Julian was laughing with a colleague by the coffee machine. Another process server, a brisk-looking woman in a pantsuit, approached him. Julian Mills? That's me, he said with a cocky grin. This is for you, she said, handing him an identical envelope. He took it, confused. He opened it and saw his own name listed as a co-conspirator in a fraud claim. He read the transcript of his own texts, his own voice memo quoted verbatim. A pretty good trade for putting up with Mr. Blue Collar for a few years. The color drained from his face. His colleague was staring at him. Julian felt a wave of nausea. Back in Eastland, a locksmith was efficiently changing every lock on the bungalow. A notice was posted on the new front door, citing the pending legal action and barring her entry. Marcus's phone, now off, began its silent, frantic dance. If he had turned it on, he would have seen the cascade. 10:19 a.m. Text from Brianna. What the hell is this, Marcus? Some kind of sick joke? Call me now. 10:25 a.m. Text from Brianna. They served me at work, in front of a client. Do you know what you've done? You've humiliated me. 10:28 a.m. Voicemail from Brianna, voice shaking with rage. Marcus, you pick up the phone right now? You think you can pull a stunt like this? After everything I've done for you, our post-nup is ironclad. You are going to regret this for the rest of your miserable life. 10:45 a.m. Text from Julian. What did you do? Brianna is freaking out. You need to call this off. 11:15 a.m. Voicemail from Brianna. Tone shifting from anger to panicked confusion. Marcus, baby, please, call me. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. Those texts, they were taken out of context. It was a joke. Julian and I were just joking. You know how we are. Please just call me so we can talk about this. 12:30 p.m. Text from Brianna. I can't get into the house. The locks are changed. Marcus, this isn't funny. Where am I supposed to go? 2 p.m. Voicemail from Brianna, her voice now cracking, crying. Please, Marcus. Please, I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. I was just stressed. I love you. You know I love you. Don't do this to us. Please don't take my home away from me. My home, she had called it. Even in her desperation, the truth slipped out. Marcus sat by the lake, skipping stones across the water. He didn't hear the voicemails. He didn't see the texts. He just felt the quiet satisfaction of a complex system finally brought back into balance. The pressure had been released, not in a chaotic explosion, but in a precise, controlled burn that was consuming only the parts that were rotten. The consequences cascaded not with the drama of a single explosion, but with the methodical, grinding certainty of a demolition crew taking a building down, floor by floor. Brianna's downfall was not a single event. It was a series of collapses, each one a direct result of the choices she had made. First, her career evaporated. The public nature of the serving at her $95,000 a year job was just the beginning. The fraud allegations, complete with the damning text message transcripts included in the public court filing, were toxic. Her firm, which traded on its reputation for integrity and discretion, could not tolerate the scandal. She was called into her boss's office the following Monday. He didn't yell. He was coldly professional. "Brianna, your actions have exposed the firm to reputational risk. We have to sever ties. Your termination is effective immediately." She was escorted out of the building with her belongings in a cardboard box. The $8,700 Armani-clad colleagues she had tried so hard to impress now refusing to meet her eye. Her professional network, built on a foundation of superficial charm, dissolved overnight. No one would return her calls. Next, her financial world imploded. With no income, she couldn't afford her expensive life. The payments on her white BMW 3 Series, a $43,000 car with a $750 monthly note, went unpaid. 2 months later, it was repossessed from the parking lot of the cheap motel she was staying at. Her credit cards, already near their limits from her constant shopping, were maxed out on legal fees for the second-rate lawyer she was forced to hire after being dropped by her high-powered firm. The court proceedings were swift and brutal. Evelyn Reed presented the evidence with cold precision. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, looked at the post-nup, then at the texts, then at the hotel receipt. The verdict was a complete and utter defeat for Brianna. The judge declared the post-nuptial agreement null and void due to the clear and convincing evidence of conspiracy to commit fraud. Her claim to the house was dismissed entirely. The judge ordered her name to be struck from the deed, affirming Marcus's sole ownership as inherited property. Furthermore, based on the financial evidence Marcus had provided, the court issued a judgment against her for $75,000, a partial repayment of the $147,000 he had poured into her debts and their life. It was a debt she had no conceivable way to pay. She was left with nothing but her expensive, now useless wardrobe and a mountain of legal bills. She was forced to move from the motel into a cramped, $1,200 a month apartment in a rundown complex off Sugar Creek Road, miles away from the glamorous Myers Park world she desperately wanted to inhabit. Her brother, Julian, did not escape unscathed. Named as a co-conspirator, his reputation as a financial advisor was shattered. His firm launched an internal investigation. While he avoided criminal charges, he was fired for gross ethical misconduct. The cost of hiring his own lawyer to defend himself against the civil fraud claim drained his savings, forcing him to sell his condo in a hurry. The smug, arrogant man who had sneered at Mr. Blue Collar was now scrambling for freelance work, his slick suits gathering dust in the closet of his new, much smaller, rented apartment. Even the lover, David Keller, the senior partner at Brianna's old firm, faced a reckoning. Though not a party to the lawsuit, his name on the hotel receipt became a piece of unofficial gossip that spread like wildfire. His wife, a prominent doctor, quietly filed for divorce a few months later. His own carefully curated life of wealth and prestige was fractured, a consequence of a single, sloppy night of infidelity. Marcus, meanwhile, was insulated from the chaos he had initiated. He never spoke to Brianna again. Evelyn handled all communication. He received a final, rambling voicemail a month after the judgment, a pathetic cocktail of blame, apology, and self-pity. "You ruined my life, Marcus," she cried. "Everything was perfect, and you destroyed it. I hope you're happy in that house all alone." He listened to it once, felt a brief, faint flicker of pity, and then deleted it. He was not happy she was suffering, he was simply relieved that the suffering was no longer his. The house was quiet now. The silence was no longer heavy with lies, but light with possibility. He walked through the rooms, his rooms, and began the slow, steady work of reclaiming his life, one honest day at a time. 2 years passed. The rain of that terrible night was a distant memory, replaced by the warm, consistent glow of a Carolina sun. The small brick bungalow in Eastland was no longer just a house, it was a home again, vibrant with life. Where once there had been a patch of struggling grass in the backyard, there was now a thriving garden. Rows of tomatoes, cucumbers, and collard greens grew strong and green, a testament to patient, daily effort. Marcus found a deep satisfaction in it, in nurturing something from the soil with his own 2 hands. The biggest change was parked in the driveway. His old, reliable 2015 Ford F-150 was still there, but next to it sat a gleaming white service van. On its side, in clean, professional lettering of navy blue, was a logo he had designed himself, Hayes HVAC, Integrity and Service. The word integrity was the most important part. At 41, Marcus was no longer just a technician. He was a business owner. After the legal battle was over, he had used the remainder of his savings and a small business loan to go out on his own. It was a risk, but it was his risk, on his terms. His reputation for honest, meticulous work spread through the neighborhoods of Charlotte, from the historic homes of Plaza Midwood to the new builds in the suburbs. He never overcharged. He always explained the work clearly, and he guaranteed every job. His first year, he had grossed $98,000. This year, he was on track to clear $150,000. But the numbers weren't what made him most proud. At 8 a.m. on a bright Tuesday morning, 2 young men, both in their early 20s, arrived at his house. Their names were Jamal and Kevin, 2 kids from his own neighborhood who were smart and eager but lacked direction. Marcus had hired them as apprentices. He was paying them a good wage, $22 an hour to start, and teaching them everything he knew about the trade. How to read schematics, how to braze copper, how to diagnose a faulty compressor by sound alone. "Morning, Mr. Hayes," Jamal said, his hair in neat cornrows. "Morning, Marcus." Marcus corrected him for the 10th time. "We're a team. Now, Kevin, walk me through the diagnostics for the Johnson job this morning. What are the first 3 things you're going to check?" He was building something more than a business. He was building opportunities. He was creating a legacy his mama would have been proud of, one rooted not in glass towers or designer labels, but in skill, community, and respect. One afternoon, he received a letter. It was from Brianna. He recognized her elegant, looping handwriting on the envelope. He held it for a moment, feeling nothing but a faint curiosity. He opened it. It was a short, simple note. She was working as a waitress now, she wrote. She was sorry. Not just for the plan, but for her arrogance, for not appreciating who he was. She didn't ask for forgiveness or for money. She just wanted him to know. He read it, folded it, and placed it in a drawer. He had forgiven her long ago, not for her sake, but for his. Forgiveness, he had learned, wasn't about absolving the other person. It was about reclaiming your own peace, about refusing to let their poison continue to sicken you. True wealth, Marcus had come to understand, isn't something you can wear or drive or live inside of. It's not a number in a bank account or a post-nup designed to steal a life. True wealth is the skill in your hands. It's the trust you earn from your community. It's the peace you feel at the end of a long, honest day's work. It's the ability to look at yourself in the mirror and respect the person you see. Brianna had tried to leave him with nothing, but she had failed. She had only managed to take away the things that never really mattered in the first place. He had his trade, he had his home, he had his integrity. He had everything. We all face betrayals, big and small. But how we respond defines us. Do we let them break us? Or do we use them as fuel to rebuild something stronger and more authentic? Share your story in the comments below about a time you turned a setback into a foundation for a better future. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories of love, loss, and the quiet triumph of character.